This is kind of an update of a long-time project that started out of my work on the Speculator 6, 7 years ago or 8 years ago. And it was a technique, basically a then and now technique, where you retake the shot and then you register everything. The key is that you have to be as close as possible to the original position of the photographer. So sometimes that's 30 feet underground, sometimes it's 100 feet above ground. Hill's been moved all around, things are there that weren't, things aren't there that were. And so this is a way of visualizing the past, actually making the past part of your own experience here in the present. So let's just start here. I'm going to start because it's such a fascinating place. Everybody knows that. But the thing, when you get into the nitty-gritty, you realize just how fascinating it is. Just in every direction, there's rabbit holes everywhere that you can go down that are all incredibly cool. So you've probably seen this photograph. It says 1875. Farland says it was 1873. The big thing is it's really prior to any hard rock mining. This is right after the gold rush. It's interesting. Does anybody know where this photograph was taken? Because this is the kind of thing that's reverse engineering about where things are. So where was it?
Was that a Silver Bowl?
We'll take a little look. So this is 1875 roughly. Main Street goes right down this ridge. And you can go through in detail. I chose this thing. It's not quite the right place. The photograph is actually taken up a little bit, just above the nexus of copper with the Anaconda Road. But with this one, you can actually see the hills in the past. A lot of the stuff in that prior photograph are chemical stains, and so they look like hills. And go, where was that? Well, it's nowhere. Right. So, but the far ridge and the up of the Pioneers, you know, is all the same. So it's a transformation. There's very few places like this where you've got a transformation of a metropolis from nothing, right? So this is the interim between the end of the gold rush and the last people, you know, trying to wash a few more pans, and the Chinese being more meticulous, and the hard rock mining era, which is really what defines the place. So that's basically the same place. Now, again, a metropolis, what does it grow out of? We have here in Butte this amazing situation where there are photographs taken from the 1870s, even supposedly from the late 1860s, although they really haven't been verified, but 1870s and early 1880s, when there's almost nothing here. So you watch this almost nothing grow to this incredibly huge metropolis with all its different branches in the finance, the smelting, banking. You know, worldwide banking crisis started with Heinz selling out to Amalgamated, right? Taking this and trying to do the same thing on Wall Street that he did here. It didn't work. So this, we're looking down Main Street. Timber Butte. And this is before there's any hard rock mining. Where is it? It's right on Ports of Maine.
Right inside.
And so when I draw these out, right, you can still see this kid who's just hanging out there in the middle of the dirt street, right? So from almost nothing, this scrabbly little dirty town that was a gold rush for 2 or 3 years, and then everything was basically gone, to the hard rock mining, which we'll get into, to this. Right? Main Street's just this incredible thing, except once you get up a little bit, most of the old buildings are gone, right? And so we're going to have some fun with a bunch of this. Okay, what happened with hard rock mining? Suddenly, thousands and thousands, I shouldn't say suddenly. Suddenly is a historical time, you know, within about 10 years, it starts just accelerating like crazy within a few years. They don't have the methods really, they're struggling. They can't figure out how to smelt the ores because they're weird sulfides, among other things. And to tease out all these different things, it's just hundreds and hundreds of critical things technologically and otherwise, and also infrastructure that's required to make the place work. And it takes a while to do that. But people are coming in, Clark, later Heinz, and Daly, and Farland, a whole set of other people, secondary, what you might call copper kings and so forth. The whole place just becomes this kind of boiling inferno of change and push for the future. So here we go. Butte was a recipient of tens of thousands of immigrants. So this is right in the era where you have, millions of people coming into the vast United States right at this time. And so Butte's a magnet because it's got these jobs. So let's take a look. Okay, so we have a lot of really cool old photographs. One, this is right up on the top of what I've heard called Little Butte, Nanny Goat Butte, right? It's at the end of Idaho Street. And see, so here's Idaho Street right there, right? Montana Street is not there. The courthouse is not there, right? But people are coming in. So you're really kind of halfway above. We'd have to look up right above to our left, which we will, to see where the mines are. So let's take the left half of this, right? So this is the old Methodist church that was decommissioned. Dave Goodwin's working on that. Really cool project. Okay, this is where Montana Street will be, right? Here's kind of the Uptown. Here's the flats. Okay, let's shoot that with these guys hanging out there right on the steep, rocky hillside. Why don't we have any trees? Because it's like a moonscape. But this is where they were. Here's the Methodist Church. You can watch this. The ridge line there. The East Ridge is what makes a lot of this possible. So you just watch. So you match into the East Ridge and some of the other features here, and you come up with this. And I like this because it's like a X-ray vision across time, right? We know our present. We've moved around in it. We can remember stuff that happened, through our life, but not very precisely. So if you can take photographs that way precede that, and then you can make them in and match them into the place that they were actually taken. What you do is you take the past, like this, and you make it part of your present. You can actually learn the past. And there's these little vignettes, these little kind of portals through time. Every single one of these is like that. So to me, what it is it's like expanding your awareness out into the past, but in this kind of tactile way. It's just visual, tactile. You can walk around there. You can say, this is where that guy with the hat was standing. This is where the little girl was sitting and watching the dump trucks and the excavators at the right below the original mine. Things like that. It's what it does is it makes the past intimately, in detail, into at least these little portals into your present, and into your own experience. So, there's all these sayings, it's like the past doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Oh, those who don't know the past are doomed to repeat it. And there are all these general statements. But here, you can see the past. You can kind of reach out and touch it in a lot of places. It's really cool. So I think this is from the point of view, I think it's a profound transformation. But just then and now photographs done really, really precisely. Okay, looking down Idaho. Same place, within, photograph taken almost from exactly the same place. So watch. You see the rocks projected on the asphalt, and the past becomes a present. You can go up there and stand there, and when you got a photograph, you're going, let's see, is it like this, or you're comparing two photographs, the then and the now. There are two different places in your head. There are two different things you've got to have to say, okay, well, that place is this thing over here. But this takes it, and I register everything really carefully so they're right on top of one another, and so individual details are exactly the same. And sometimes I have to reshoot stuff 10, 15, 20 times because I'm not in the right place. And when you get over on the hill and you look a little bit, and you've got the head frame like the original, the Stewart against the East Ridge, you can move this much, an inch, and see the difference. It's amazing. But only in some places you wander around for half a mile and you're going, God, I think it's someplace around here, but I don't know. So this is a great one. There's a whole series of pictures. They're from photographs, or they were made into postcards. These little girls are all dressed up, and they gotta love the contrast, right, between the nitty gritty, the wild stuff here, and these cute, clean little girls in their pinafores and tuckers and dresses. I mean, it really is kind of a perfect comparison, because this is what's going on to create this, right? All the different parts of the culture coming together. The money is transformed into use by people, into families, into care, right? try to keep things going, to try to keep the job and so forth. So I don't want to get caught up in any kind of huge scale banking or company riots and whatnot. I just want to try to deal with this stuff, and then we can go there. So here's the bottom of the hill, right? Never Sweat, Parrot, the Diamond. Here's the Stuart in the original, St. Patrick's Church. Here's St. Lawrence O'Toole, edge of the Lexington head frame. So watch, where is this? That's just a rhetorical question. Where is it? You're gonna see. It's right on Leipheimer Hill, right above St. James, which is all, here's the parking lot, right? That house, they, for God knows why, but I'm glad they did it. Watch. Just as you're seeing this whole thing here, how do you match this thing up? There's the house.
There it is.
And I won't go into how you do this, but there's a lot of subtle things about how things line up and what the angles are and whatnot. And it's very difficult to do at times. Even I've probably done 1,200 or 1,300 of these things, and probably another 500 that really didn't work. And you just kind of keep going at it. Mr. Malloy back in the back helped me a bunch with some of them. So I wanted to retake this shot from the first time I ever saw it. I was working on the Speculator book. The book is A Darkness Lit by Heroes, and it will take you and put you inside the mind, because I had that much personal stuff that was found. The archives found 600 pages of eyewitness testimony that had been lost. So this is really just...
No, we didn't lose it. We didn't lose it.
Well, yeah. Somebody took it, stuck it up in the...
It had been hidden for safety, I think.
It had been hidden for safety, that's exactly right. So in the process of doing that, I got, God, I should try to reshoot this, because it's like, okay, I know right where that is. We got Park, we got Maine right down here. And so this is the Metals Bank, right, for God's sake, like there's Simon's and stuff, and it's, of course, prior to any of the fires over here. Okay, and I recognize this, but how do you get out on a little railing and a thing that's about this wide, about 30 feet above? I mean, who's going to let you do that? Well, Ray Euland said, I can't open the windows because there's so much stuff on my desks, but he moved out. And so I got the green light to say, okay, if you want to try to shoot this, so I take out the big window, set it like this, and I go, God, this is great. And then you couldn't do this in Missoula at all. I'd step out, work my way along the thing, come right around the edge, and this picture just suddenly, it just solidifies. So watch. It's a big funeral procession for a bunch of Serbo-Croatian miners who all worked together, lived together, and died together. Same place. I had to really watch this. It's super sensitive to, if you move half an inch, you screw up the whole perspective. But it's cool, because that's part of the puzzle. That's part of recreating that photographer's experience as he watched the funeral procession go on. Okay, almost never do we get pictures of the Copper King and then a place where we can actually go and stand there and say, hi, William, how you doing? Or Ryan, or Con Kelly. Right? So where is this? They're standing right on that street.
There you go.
And if you want to go and talk with them later today, tell them hi from me. Okay, and then guys like this unnamed guy's riding this big, gnarly freight truck on Mercury. Where's he going? Well, he's probably headed back over someplace, maybe down Montana and stuff. Or I think he's a little premature for pork chop Johns, but he's like 50 feet, right? And so this is great. So when the buildings or some aspect of the landscape stays the same, then you can cross time through this little portal. And there he is. Right? And I hope you're starting to feel a little bit. When you do this, you run it back and forth, and you start seeing this, it's like, yeah, I can go right up there. I'm going to go get a sandwich at Pork Chop John's, and I'm going to stand out there and I'm going to watch for the freight train. Okay, this is more recent. It's got Marcus Daly's statue. This, the drugstore, machine shop, right up on Main, right out next to the federal building. But watch. when you're walking up Main now, all those things are part of the past. And what you experience is totally different, right? And so this is a way, and I love this thing, so I try to do this in everything I do, is how do you extend your senses into the place you want to go? I'm a PhD scientist, I did a lot of research in a lot of different fields and stuff. This is the process of trying to get the world into your head in the way it actually works. So if I'm studying smelting, I would love to go to a smelter, stand there with the main smelterman, okay, now look at those fumes, okay, now look at the color, now look at the little flame on the top, now look at all this stuff. Because every single thing that people do has all these subtle characteristics. I'm standing up on top of the Stuart Chippy hoist, which Larry Hoffman brought to life. It's like bringing a T-Rex back to life. I'm standing up there with Lulu Sheen. He engages the thing, and the thing comes alive, and it's like standing on the top of the shoulders of a T-Rex. Right, and Lou's just chatting, he's having a great time. It's like, what do you do? What do you think? I said, Lou, when you come in here at the beginning of a shift, what are you looking at? What are you hearing? What does it sound like? Do you hear any squeaks? No, you don't hear any squeaks. You gotta be an oiler for 5 years before you can get up here. So what does it sound like? What does it sound like? And he's going, well, it sounds, everything's moving and humming and stuff. It sounds pretty as a song. Right? He's got the song of that hoist in it, right? How would you ever know that somebody like that was a poet, was a musician, as he's driving that hoist 4,000 feet under the ground? Those are the kinds of things that when you can open them up, you see, you feel something about the experience of being there and all the things that went into actually creating that. Okay, Smokehouse Mine, Wyoming Street. Here's the alleyway, the ore bins, the Thornton building, the shaft.
First, use your fingerprints
scraped
to
off,
the device.
the smokehouse in about 1900, and they found a really rich copper vein right there below it. So they start developing it. This shaft ends up going down 2,000 feet. Too much water, too much blood. Where do you put the waste dump? You're right in the middle of Uptown, right? So eventually, it doesn't go anywhere, except when you watch this, if you happen to have a time machine, a visual one, and you watch with X-ray vision about what changes, that shaft is right there. So Tom, well, you're the one who told me that it took, 60 or 62 cement truckloads to fill up the upper part?
It took a lot of concrete.
Yeah, a lot of concrete, yeah. Otherwise, you just had either the best outhouse or the best.
To do what?
Concrete to do what?
To fill up the top of the shaft there that was 2,000 feet. Of course, the water was coming up, but it's really acidic water, right? So there's the timbers are all getting, even though they're pickled for longevity's sake, they're not pickled enough. And so the shaft is going to collapse at some point. It's 2,000 feet, but the water level's down there maybe a couple hundred, and they're probably a little higher. So you have to fill up the shaft, because otherwise, it's like guys eating a lunch in the back of the janitor, and he tosses the sandwich down the shaft. Or he takes an extra step backwards because he's trying to get the mop, and the mop's getting out of hand, and he falls into the shaft. So yeah, it's just unsafe. Again, so this is the top of the hill. So we've taken these early shots about just the rocky landscape here, and now we're looking at what happened to that. What was built? Where was it built? Okay, so here's the diamond, right on a public service day where they've got a tour with, I just love, all these hats and all this great stuff. And they're going to take a tour down. And I especially like this photograph because my neighbor across the street in Missoula, who opened Butte up to us in a very personal way, Duke Crowley. This is what he did as a kid. He lived on 15 Lexington Terrace. The house is long gone. But this is what he did before school and after school, getting the broken wood, broken timbers off the Cora mine dump. Put them on a little makeshift wheelbarrow and take them back so they could heat their house when it's 35 below. and cook their dinner. So this picture means a lot to me personally, just having heard Duke tell these stories when he was in his 90s. So watch. You see that, you think you have a certain scale, a certain size, but watch what happens when you take the people away and all the other things that have context. You would never be able to feel the vitality of the place, the people, the diversity, the people who are excited. What were they talking about? You know, whose son worked in the thing, on and on and on. Look at that. It's still pretty cool as a structural, industrial, structural, technical thing, but to watch it in action, to see it, to feel it again, is something totally different. So Upper West Copper, I'm going to use this to introduce a couple of things. So we can step behind these two natty gentlemen with their bowler hats as they head into Uptown. Right? In about 1906, this was built in 1906. This was moved to the Never Sweat in 1916. This house still exists. Ones in between don't. This one does. It's being renovated slowly, but with much love. Okay, and so if we move a little over to the left and look at this, so we've got the folk music festival, other events, so forth. I think, you know, this is like an act of genius, whoever, all the people that worked on this, because this is a perfect place. It's kind of right in the heart of the industrial pulse of this place, and now it's used for these other great purposes, with people enjoying themselves and feeling the vital aspects of what's in the city now. But it didn't always look like that, and Montana was not always so proud. This street is kind of a bit of happenstance, because you can see here these kids, and that's what it was. So it's amazing, right? You go there now and say, wow, this is nice grassy slope, and people go, yeah, what do those reclamation guys do anyway? I mean, they probably sit up there and play tic-tac-toe on their computers. No. So there's a transparency taken from that. Okay, so we're going to move across. I'm going to go, you can see the courthouse here. Copper Street's just right over here. Those guys, the gentlemen with their hats going uptown, they're on Copper Street, which is just right on the other side of this. So we're going to take a trip down Copper Street. Okay, so one of the things that happened right next to Copper Street is Miners Union Hall, which is just across the alley right out there. I mean, those of you who've seen photographs of Main Street back in the day, it's stunning. If anything, it was built up more than most parts of Park. It's really amazing. And so one part, okay, so we're looking here, and this is our corner right out there. So the fire department, you can see it when the photographs are taken a little higher, is right behind this building here, right down here. This is the alleyway that you oftentimes drive through right down there. So Miners Union Hall, big thing, big deal, 1914, a huge amount of emotion going out, people not liking, the miners not liking that the people in charge of the miners union are a little too cozy with the owners. And thing leads to thing, and they start blowing this place up. Right, so again, you can look at that and go, yeah, that's a cool picture, and there's a mine right there. Well, that's the original. You stand right across the street, cobblestone street, so watch this. Then right across the street, there's a little monument, which is, again, another great thing to add to this. What was it like? You fill it with 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 pissed off miners about to blow that place up, while the president and whatnot are scampering off the back. And that's what we're left with. How does all that life fit into this quiet little place? That's the problem of a historian. That's the problem of each of us understanding our own past. Because we feel our own path. We feel the things that went into that. And this is just an attempt to try to pull those parts of the history visually and make them into part of what you can experience now. I should say one thing. So watch, right behind there. You see the head frame? Voila, right? There it is. So there are these things that are hidden, and you learn to try to look closer and closer at different details and so forth. It's all part of this journey. And I'm just pleased that it's possible to be able to convey these places. So this is on the top of the Federal Building, looking down right before they started blowing the place up, right? The crowd's just starting to really come here. There's probably, who knows, maybe 1,500 or 2,000. And they haven't raided the Stewart powder house yet to get the dynamite to come down and blow that place up. So watch. The maintenance and security people were nice enough to me, allowed when I showed them what I was doing. So again, look at this. How do you connect the vibrance of the first into the barrenness of the second? That's the job of humanizing it. That's the job of taking the things that we know and recreating them as they lived. Just imagine being in that crowd. Right? Imagine when the first dynamite blast went off. So all of these are part of our collective long-term experience. They're part of who we are. And so this method is a way to get at and recreate and relive, in effect, things that happened far before any of us were born. Okay, where was that? This is a classic postcard shot. Where was it taken? Well, you can say, there's Anaconda Road, bam, 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 there's the parrot, right? Never Sweat still has a wooden head frame, so this is sometime, and then here's the Nipper waste dump. There's the Nipper 1, the Nipper 2 is like right over here. And that's right and sitting in front of the Arco building now. Mountain View, this double smokestack at this time was the high ore, so watch. Where is this? It's like taking a little shot from somewhere out of your experience and then disconnecting it from that context. And now we're trying to put the context back. It's just right there. So part of what I'm going to do a little bit later is take a little bit with these individual shots of this. But I am in the process of recreating a whole trip up Anaconda Road from Copper all the way across Uptown, Corktown, then up this area here, and then up and off into thin air. And all of that's going to go into a movie, and hopefully it will work like the movie that I showed you at the end here. Because it's part of taking these isolated shots and making them part of your continuous experience, so that you can step, as it were, right into the past, right through the screen and right into the past. Okay, so right here is an old building. It's the old livery stable, really. So Irene Scheidecker has her house just right here. So this is Copper. So let's take a look at Copper. Looking down to this house here and the trolley cars that are coming down and going up. So let's see that. That's what it looked like. Looking right up the hill. This is Copper. There's a trolley right there. Right? There are all these houses. This building, fortunately, is still there, so it can be used as an anchor point. But look at that. Isn't that, to have that just hanging right over you, right? I didn't see Dennis Marchima, but he grew up right underneath, or right next to the Moonlight, and then right underneath the Never Sweat over on the Indigrand. Right? So how do you, but probably a little bit, certainly after its heyday, how do you recreate that feeling? Well, this is pretty cool. This pretty much does it, at least visually. Here's the parrot. Right? Here's the Never Sweat. Here's the Anaconda. So watch what it is now, right? And you take that vitality, the bubbling stuff, the non-stop mining, the non-stop ore dumping, and it becomes, I love this because they're still projected on the street. The trolley's gone. And that's what it looks like. How do you bootstrap yourself from this into that? Because that's what it was. I've been playing a bunch with these kind of time-lapse fade time-lapse videos, plus adding the literal transparency. So I'll probably make posters or something. I think it's worthwhile on some of these photographs to see the contrast. Okay, so when we go down here, turn the corner, right at the base there, right where the fence is, and there's an open area right there, okay? Let's see. Oops. There used to be a whole set of shacks, right? You can see the steward's still there. They're just right there. That guy smoking his pipe. It'd be fun to go over and hang out with him for a while, right? So we move back a little bit, you can see that's the same doorway. Steward's right there, very proud. These places are hidden, right? Because we don't perceive them, we've never experienced them. This is a way to recreate and restructure our own perception so that we can actually see the past and the present. So I think this is a very good educational tool, and I'll be talking to Chris Fisk and some, other people, just because they understand this too. This is what they do. This is what you do when you're immersed in this stuff and you're trying to compare it yourself. But this makes it literal, and therefore it makes it communicatable. Okay, so we went up a little bit, up Anaconda Road. We just turned around, we just kept going. Okay, and this is what it is. You ever heard of trestles and side hill? That's this area right here. Okay, this is Wyoming Street. Here's the trolley cars that came off right here, off Anaconda Road, and then turned up and went underneath. They go over here right next to the East Stewart, and then they reverse. So this is the one to the track to the Orbins for the Stewart. Here's St. Mary's School, here's St. Mary's Church, burned down 1934. Other stuff up on the hill, and then, my God, can you imagine living in that neighborhood? Really amazing. So, what does it look like now? Looks like that. You imagine the effort. See, all of this is pushed out. That's Mandan Park right there, so-called, right? It was created by filling in part of this gully that goes up Wyoming, Woolman, across. And so, Tom, you planted all these little poplars, and they're growing and growing, and I can't shoot across them. I got to get there in the fall or the winter. They lost their leaves, so I can get the incredible shots that I feel like across here. But you done good. So, yeah, that's just the So now we moved a little bit farther up the hill. You can see the trestle area we were looking at. Here's the East Stewart. This is like 1920 or so, maybe a little before, where it's just an air shaft, right? And they've given everything up over to the West Stewart. And these interesting waste dumps, which made Mandan Park, but they pushed it all out over here, right? And so when you take pictures of the trolley in this area, they're 25 feet underground. So let's take a look. Again, here's the trolley line coming off Anaconda Road, and going around and going up over here. Amazing, isn't it? Okay, I'm sure most of you have seen this shot. This is a little bit farther up. So each time I'm going like maybe 50 yards up the big Parrot dump that was filled out and made into additional warehouses and whatnot. So we're looking down, right? And the guy in the shack, he's like right over here. Okay, we're looking across East Stewart. West Stewart's going to be right in here. Okay, lots of people, saloons, people living along the road, thousands of them. So let's see what happens. I climbed up on the side here. Oops. I climbed up on the side here above Anaconda Road, which is partially hidden because it's such a steep slope. So here comes the Stewart. there goes the east street. It's an enclosed shaft, but that's exactly where the shaft is. All the people that lived along the road and even up on this side. So if you go up here, you can actually see there's a little mound about this high. It's greener, it's a little different, obviously. That's the shaft. Filled in, of course, for safety purposes. Where was this taken? Look at this. See that little thing? That's an air shaft. That's a little house that's protecting an air shaft. This is the leaser's mine. Watch that little thing. It's kind of like an outhouse, but not really. There it is. These kids were sitting on the end of the Nipperdome, looking up Anaconda Road, which is right here. Well, this is that line of houses that we just looked at from right about over here. Here's the opening to the parrot yards. Here's a continuation of Anaconda Road, right below the Never Sweat. Anaconda's back here way below this and right around to the Parnell and the High Ore. So let's watch. Where is that place? Why can't you see that kind of scene anymore? Because over the years, the hill's been completely transformed into something else. It's the Arco Yard, right below the Arco Yard. And so there's our lonely Anaconda Road. Okay, now we're looking straight east, right? Here's the Anaconda Road. We were looking up kind of over in this area. All these houses, is actually somebody who lives about 2 blocks away from you. She had moved, Mary Downey, who lived, I think, right back in one of these houses here. So I've yet to sit down and talk with her about what her neighborhood was like. But I hope to. It's the diamond. So you're looking up Anaconda Road, and it's really amazing how these things just expand when you're at a different angle. And that's what it looks like. How do you recreate the feeling of life, happiness, wildness, craziness, all this fun stuff, all this super serious stuff, the deaths? How do you put all that in the past? I'm going to jump a little bit. This is the old Mountain Con 2, Mountain Con 1. This is right at a little above True Grit. That's up here, Buffalo comes across. There's a street, Buffalo Street continues around here. Okay, so this is the ends. This guy's standing out here on a slope. So watch, 1891. He's like 25 feet underground because they moved the whole hill. There he is, transparency. So this thing actually has a capped off shaft. And so I know exactly where that was. So top part of this with shift wheels up here, it's going straight down that shaft. It was. And so this is standing right below it. Okay, if you go over here, and here's that little cleft, you stand right on this little pile of rocks and look up this way, past Mountain Con 2, this is what you'd look. That's what you would be looking at in 1890. Okay, here's this, which is down the trail, right? You get on this and then you climb up the Copper Trail right at the end of it. All of this is gone, except for the mighty Mountain Con. There's the capped off shaft. Right, so one of the things I'm going to do this, instead of just showing these little time-lapse fades here, is I've got a drum, and I've already been doing this, and you'll see a couple of examples, which is moving around. You have to take a path that makes sense to the person watching. If you take this great drone thing, and he does like 4 flips, and he goes tearing up toward the sun, comes down, goes right around the original head frame, a teenager would go, yeah, that's a great video game, but everybody else would go, oh my God. So you got to find something, and usually it's very simple and smooth, that takes us on a journey. So moved up a little, And this is true grit right here. So this is a little mina or a little mina. You're looking across, there's a mountain view, and you're looking straight across on the BA and P line to the Never Sweat and the Anaconda, right? So we're gonna just play with that just a little bit. We're looking all across there, and look at the guy standing there. He's walking along the railroad tracks, lots of houses. He's still walking across along the railroad tracks. There's only one house in here that was the same, and I think it's that
Right
one.
there. Mhm.
Everything else is different. Okay, down here at the end, right, this is the top of Wyoming. It's a little place to park, and off you go beautifully up the Copper Trail, up to the mountain con. So what's that little thing sticking out, that black thing? That's the water pipe to the big water tower for the trains, before they were electrified. So watch. Oops. See the water tower?
Mhm.
All the line's gone into the pit. Okay, so I should actually go right here. Now, if we went down, we walked right along these houses right here, and there's the water tower. We stopped right there, we might meet these two little girls who lived right in one of those houses. You see the water tower? See, you're looking straight over at the Parrot and the Never Sweat right along this thing. You just walk right along. I mean, here's a drain. Be careful where you step. That's where they were. If anybody knows who those ladies were, please get in touch with them. So right to the end, here's the water tower, right to the end of the parking lot. So let's go about 50 yards here. The next thing, right? See, so this is in the electric era. It's probably 50s, mid-50s, I guess. Or, yeah, it has to be mid-50s because the Kelly's there, the old Leonard head frame. So let's watch this guy. I don't know exactly what he's doing. Maybe he's playing with one of the spikes or just tightening stuff. So we're right there at the top of Wyoming, looking at what now is a parking lot. This guy's standing out in the middle of it with the train tracks going right around here, B&P line right behind the Arco building and around into the Anaconda Road. And if you go over there, you come across right where Anaconda Road comes up, and you know, Reclamation, the Butte Superfund, the Headframe Spirits are all over here. This is blocked off. But it's the railroad grade, it's the old BA&P grade, right? So when you go there, guess what it was like to stand on those tracks? With the Never Sweat just hanging over the top of you. Right? This is post 1916 because they moved the Parrot head frame to there, right? You can't really see the Anaconda because again, when you take these different pictures, one of the problems is you're looking from this angle, and this angle is very, very difficult to integrate all that stuff. And it's also the problem with just taking a single individual picture because you really have no idea exactly where it was. And you only know that when you start trying to say, okay, I'm going to find where this photograph was taken. So I like this thing, you know, all these guys walked up here every day with this over the top of them, and the smokestacks running from the boilers running this. So if you stood there and watched the years change, this is where you'd be. Okay, just one shot. It's the old Milwaukee Depot. It's really difficult to figure out because these places were huge. So we watched the city grow from almost nothing. Now we're watching it fade from its height. So this is a electrified BA&P line and the depot right down there in Montana. And what's amazing to me when you go back there, you realize, see, this is that beverage packing thing. You realize you're like 300 yards along. This is just a giant staging area for the railroad. It was really huge. So I got to do a bunch more fishing around out here to match up certain shots. And as usual, the East Ridge does yeoman's work for helping me figure out where things are. Okay, if we look up the hill from the top of the Finland, 1923, there's a moonlight. This is what happens. The moonlight's on the berm, all the main hill. It's gone into the pit. And so with that drone work, what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to recreate the feeling of moving all that, even though there's nothing but thin air. It's a magician's trick, but we'll see what drones can do. This is looking straight up Wyoming from the top of Finland. It's amazing. Look at this area. You know, it's the Gold Hill mine. Right? There's a bunch of different mines in here when you start looking. And here's the Stewart. Here's Lexington. The diamond's just off over here, and so forth. Well, let's watch. It's shots like these. They're so complex, it's hard to really assimilate stuff. You have to watch it multiple times. But the thing you can really see is how much is gone. And of course, there's that. And this is where we went. And that little shack is right there. BA and P line comes right across over here. Those little girls are just right over this way. It's like when you start piecing this stuff together and you watch it move and stuff, it's like, yeah, in a very slight way, it's kind of like the city becoming alive again. And this is a sum-up shot. It's probably early 50s, late 40s. These guys coming up from a shift from Mountain Con. You can go over the Mountain Con. It's a great walk, right? Look for them next time you're up there. Okay, I'm going to do a couple of little short things here. This is kind of an amalgam. Yeah, if you need to leave, go ahead. Okay, so here, I'm taking this great 1912 panorama taken from, I figured out finally, Tom, you helped me with this one too. Where it was taken from. We're a little bit off, but not very far. It's hard to see unless you really go in detail. So here's Anaconda Road. Okay, there's the Anacondas right here. There's the Parnell I mentioned. And you can see it in one of the photographs. Here's the mountain view. It's like, wow, that's a long way up there. It's on this secondary point. And there's this huge open area here that's just sloping. And this is where they're running, multiple railroad lines off this. They have to contend with the elevation difference in 100 different ways because you got mines all the way down the front, St. Lawrence, the Rarest, and whatnot. So, but here, look at these guys walking along here, right along here. Here's another guy. Okay, right past the mountain view. Okay, and this right here, boilers, and they're starting to change to electricity right there. 1912, first major change. I think they had like 11 or 12 mines that went, the railroad went to electric. Okay, the rest were steam still, and then they were running the mineyards with the power that was generated. There's also a precipitation plant and a whole bunch of other stuff. I mean, the industrial scale of this place is just stunning. It's like all these alchemists around with gigantic machinery, doing these really amazing things, converting this strange copper sulfide ore into its constituents. Because it's not just copper, it's not just sulfur. It's got all kinds of other stuff, zinc and manganese and whatnot. They said that in World War I there was an ounce, so zinc and copper make brass. They said that in World War I there was an ounce of Butte copper in every single shot fired. So let's look at this. So we're going up Anaconda Road. It's a little jerky because this computer doesn't have quite enough RAM. So we're going past the high ore, across the trestle. Here comes Anaconda Road, and here's an offshoot right around the Speculator. And then on the little step above the Speculator is the bell, right? And the timber yard and the ore bins for the diamond. This is all became one yard. They stopped us off. If you look at that, there's no shiv wheels. Okay, so now we're going to kind of go through this a little slower, just with the phase. So here's the Anaconda area. There's the Parnell. Here's the road. Anaconda Road coming right up here. So let's just watch that change again as the mountain view. With all the tens of thousands of guys and other people who work there, hang in thin air like a ghost and disappears over the pit. The Parnell you can still see. If you get across the weed concentrator area on Shields and Farrell and look back, you can see it right on the fourth step down. It was there. It's just not here anymore because it's inside the pit. So here's the high ore, precipitation plant and electric plant hanging out in thin air, right? You can just see, when the screen's adjusted a little bit, you can see the edge of the pit here. But here, look at this, there's two wagons here, one's going down, one's going up. Imagine taking a wagon load of gear and metal, drills, whatever they had, and going all the way up. So here's the Speculator. Here's Anaconda, main Anaconda Road, but it's probably going over to the Twalney, the Modoc, and then look at this. This is the remnant of the Anaconda Road. Right? Right there. That's the Anaconda Road going up to the Speculator. And then it turns, comes behind this, and here's the Granite Mountain. It goes right in between the Speculator and the Granite Mountain. All that stuff, a lot of it's still there. It's just you got to be able to interpret it. So here we go with the Bell and Diamond. And this is a striking one. Look how busy that yard is. The only thing left is the hoist, the chippy hoist, and the main head frame. And you can see behind those buildings is the Granite Mountain. It's right behind this building. 1912. There's one more little thing here. Okay, we're going to take a trip down Park. We come off right near Montana. Sorry for the jerkiness, it's just this computer is at its limit. So watch, we're looking down here, and let's turn the clock back to 1906 when Metals Bank was made. Look at that, yeah? Right, so let's go up here, we're going to look at this corner, and we're going to look back at the Terminal Food Mart now. It used to be a bus terminal, but before that, there were two entrepreneurs from Greece, 19 and 20 years old, and they leased that building, and watch what they did with it. 1908, 1909. Didn't look bland like that. They made the Palace Candy Company, this big soda fountain, the candy factory, lunches, candies, growth, right there. The granddaughter, one of them, lives right next door to me. So let's go back. We're going to go a little further here. We're going to pull over here right in front of the Office of Public Defender thing right next to the other blocks here, right across from the Curtis Music Hall. So Curtis Music Hall, 1892, you know, in the past, the arcade, look at that. Muddy street, wagons, no metals, because this is probably 1896. Right. So when you step on this, so if we get over here, we get on a drone because we can't actually get to these places. And we get up here right outside the turret and look down on Park and Main. It's a great shot in the Metals Bank. You've probably seen it other places. Watch what was there. Look at that. And it just kept going. And then look, here's the People's Theater. Right in the middle of the block, where it's going to be a focal point here. It's kind of right above, the second floor is right above the US Bank sign. But before we look at that, which is right here, we're going to just go around the corner, we're going to look back up Main. Again, sorry for the jerkiness. The original is very smooth, but you're just at the limit of the RAM. So Herber Building, Hennessy Building, we're looking up. Turn back the clock the same time. It's probably 1895 or so. Looking back up. There's so many details in these photographs that are really cool, you know, like the gazillions of phone lines and utility lines. So we move over to the other side of the street because back in the day with the Rialto right here, there's this guy doing a typewriter box right across the 5th floor right above Park and Main. Right? Huge crowd down below. And if you go there, again, he's still up there. Go right up to the crosswalk. We'll go back to maybe the early 30s, early mid-30s. Downtown Butte. Everybody's going somewhere. Guys are hanging out on the street corners. Duke, our neighbor across the street, he had a special place where he sold his newspapers right there. Okay, we go up on the drone on the 2nd floor. We're looking up Main. Right, you can see the Federal Building, Hennessy Building, Herber Building, and watch all the street. So if we look over at the Northwestern Energy Building, I think they did a great job. It's like, how do you anchor downtown when you used to have a building like this? Duke's grandfather went to a law school, had like 2 people in it up there on the 3rd or 4th floor of the medical arts building. Now we're going to go back to the U.S. Bank in a different way. Wait just a second. So we're going to go up to the 8th floor on Metals Bank, and we're going to look out here at the Finland, because of all the stuff in the hill was there until very recently. It's a 1923 shot, roughly. So now we're going to look back down here, and so we're going to swoop down with the drone, and we're going to stop right looking at the roof, and the front part of the roof of the People's Theater, Vaudeville Theater, which is right here, just a little up above this. We're going to look because the Shiners is there. The Finland is there, an amazing place, and there's this unbelievably intimate little experience up here with somebody. You might recognize her. She's sitting right on the roof. Here's the People's Vaudeville Theater sign and the Finland being built behind her, and there's Shiners. That's where she was. She was hanging out on the roof in this incredibly intimate little thing right up here, which we'll see in a second. No backstory, no nothing. It's right behind this. And this is what was below her. Super busy street. Who knows? The mind boggles. Okay, so we're going to go down here to Wyoming and look back up. I'm almost done here. Got like maybe 2 minutes left. We're going to take this, we're going to look back up past Shiners, past Finland, past Shiners, all the way up the street. You see the Curtis Music Hall is right up here. Here's this cop giving us a wary eye right on the crosswalk. Dirt street, muddy street. You can imagine 10,000 horses open their thing every day. So we're going to go right up here, right in the alley by the Finland, right behind the Finland. And we're going to look at this, which I showed you as a separated frame before, or separated little time lapse. Remember that mine? And I like this one because, you know, it's a, right when you get right here, suddenly you've got X-ray vision across time, and there it is. When you look, even the curves are in the right place. It's kind of amazing. Sometimes you can do that. And so the whole sordid story of a mine that promised a lot and never really did much except suck a lot of money. It's right there, everybody could touch it. But no one could make a living by it. Except the guy who rented the lease, the mining lease. Okay, so again, we're super close to all this stuff is really tied together. So this is part of what is difficult about telling stories about Butte because everything is right together. Everything juts into everything else. So it's very difficult to take a storyline out of that and tell a really kind of rambunctious story, of which Butte is filled with. So last two shots here now. This is what the film looked like when that young girl was over there on the top of the People's Vaudeville Theater. June 1923. Okay, last little swoop up here. Of course, each of these from an architectural standpoint have all kinds of interesting stuff. So we're going to take this little drone flight. Butte has the most beautiful scenery, right? I'm sure you've noticed. Almost anywhere you are, you get some kind of great scene, and then the last 150 years of the industrial triumph and otherwise problems of the United States. So I love this. This is the thing that drones are great for. Come across here, here's the pit. This is all of East Butte. My God, there's schools here, there are saloons, and you name it here. All the things we were just looking up here with the Kelly, the original, the Stewart, right up here on the top, Lexington. Okay, we're going to come down right on the roof and look right up at Wyoming Street. And this used to be the Gold Hill Mine, which you will see come to life again.
Mm-hmm.
Here's our little shacks where they were. Here's the house. There's. So now look. 1,500 people living per block in Uptown. 1,500. So I'm going to leave it at that. There's one more little fade here, but same one you've seen. Looking up all the things that have dropped off into the pit. I'll do my best to resurrect them. So that's it.
Thank you.
It's just an update of the topic. A lot of experimentation, a lot of stuff. It's just my mind gets filled, and it's very difficult to tease stuff out after a while. But fortunately, I've got quite a number of good friends who help keep me on the straight and narrow to figure stuff out. So, any questions? Yeah.